Hi, I'm Nancy. Welcome to Mindful Yoga. This morning we're doing yoga with the themes of the three diaphragms, the throat, the respiratory diaphragm, and the pelvic floor. We also have the theme of keeping our mind turquoise blue, along with Gary Snyder's poem. So have a seat where you can.
Okay. I have to wash my hands.
I will mute all here. Have a seat where you can have a nice straight back within the curves, the natural curves of the spine, lifting up from the sits bones up through the crown. Letting the shoulder blades rest down the back. Lifting up with some energy, and then tucking the chin, letting the ribs relax, letting the muscles sink down a bit around the bones. Feeling yourself rooting down into earth. Inhaling earth's energy up into the body. Exhaling anything you don't need back in to recycle in the earth. Just take a few calming breaths to come back from whatever you've been doing. And bringing the mind's eye to the respiratory diaphragm, this large muscle that connects at the bottom of the breastbone, down the sides of the front ribs, around the sides and backs of the lower ribs. Let it expand like a bird's wings. The respiratory diaphragm has a tendon that runs down the middle. So it really is, in some ways, like the two wings of a bird, expanding out and folding in. Just enjoy that movement for a few breaths of unimpeded flow. As you breathe, you might notice some flutter in the pelvic floor. The pelvic floor muscles expand and contract with the respiratory diaphragm. These both are horizontal slings or diaphragms that reach across the different parts of the torso. Likewise, as your respiratory diaphragm wings out and closes in, the muscles of the neck are affected, and they in turn give some massage to the throat diaphragm, the horizontal sling of muscle that goes across the vocal cords, with the vocal cords right at the center, opening when you speak and closing with silence. These three diaphragms can stack one above the other, another source of alignment in our body. They're places of mobility. We want to free their movement, letting bones and other muscles give us the stability of holding the body up. As you inhale, feel the expansion of the pelvic floor diaphragm. And as you exhale, perhaps you feel a slight contraction, supporting of the pelvic floor diaphragm up towards the respiratory diaphragm. Just a slight movement. Then feeling up through the heart muscle between ribs and up into the throat. Feel that vocal diaphragm being massaged by the neck muscles. Everything in a glorious symphony working together. Three birds climbing through the sky. And now on our own, we'll each say an Om, allowing the vocal cords vibration to vibrate through that throat diaphragm down into the respiratory diaphragm and into the pelvic floor diaphragm. So on your own, 3 Om. Feeling the vibrations. And bringing your hands to the sides of your body. Inhale as palms open, rise up. Magpie on a bow, tipped his head and said, hands come together and down the midline. Here in the mind, brother, turquoise blue. And 2 more times. I wouldn't fool you, smell the breeze. It came through all the trees. No need to fear what's ahead. Snow up on the hills west will be there every year. Be at rest. A feather on the ground, the wind sound. Here in the mind, brother, turquoise blue. Stopping a moment at heart center. Clarity of the mind, the crisp air. And removing anything that is high underneath you, coming onto a blanket or a pillow or even a chair. Crisscrossing the legs. We're going to be driving here. So imagine you have a steering wheel and just the right amount over to one side and then the other to give you a little stretch on one side, a little crunch on the other, shoulder blades resting down the back, a little lift up through the diaphragms. Then coming back through center, raise the hands up a bit. Imagine a big wheel in front of you that you pull down on the side and then come across the front and then up and over, making it just as big as is right for the range of motion of your bones and muscles and joints. Very respectful of the body. And then coming back the opposite direction. Breathing in synchrony with the wheel. One more time round. Arms are up and then they spring wide, soft through the wrists, heavy through the elbows, shoulders down the back. Inhale, open the chest. Exhale, fold your feathers in. Inhale, open the wings like a cormorant drying in the sun and bring them in. Opening up, feeling the breeze. And one last time, letting fear go of whatever is ahead. Hands come down onto the thighs. Shrug the shoulders up towards the ears. And then relax them down. One more time, squeezing shoulders up. This time, let the back of the skull come back and rest slightly. This is the bottom of the skull and the back of the neck. Resting back onto the muscles of the shoulders and moving from side to side as your shoulders are shrugged up, giving a kind of pillow to the neck as it goes back and forth. And then letting the shoulders come down. Let the chin come down towards the chest, draw a necklace. Gradually let the chin come up over the shoulder and take a peek back. Come back through center, eyes to the horizon. One hand comes to the opposite side of the head, head into hand. Exhale, soften, neck underneath, on top, shoulders down. Cheeks and jaw soft. And release up. Other side, arm rises, hand to the opposite side, press head into hand. Inhale, and then exhaling, everything relaxing down. Release, and let that come up. Now bring one hand about one arm, 45 degrees on the side back, the other hand about 45 degrees going up on the other side. Almost like you are a windmill, and then change to the opposite side. Maybe fingers just touch lightly on the mat behind or the floor, giving some stretch and strength to the quadratus lumborum, the muscles on either side between the bottom of the ribs and the top of the pelvis, running along the spine. It's a deep abdominal muscle that we strengthen so that we can be stronger than the chair culture that we are born into. One last time. And come back through center. Bring the feet wide, hands behind you for support. Good support up through arms to the shoulders as knees windshield wipe across. Let the mind come down into the hips, feeling the sensation there. Feeling the roll of the bottom of the feet over the floor. And let one arm join in, coming round, increasing the rotation in the body as it reaches back to the back corner of the room. Next time you come back around, give yourself the gift of a full body twist. Hands might be on the floor. You might come down with one forearm or both. Forehead might come to the back of the hands. Coming back to breathing through the back of the lower ribs, under the armpits. Inhale, push back up. And take your full body twist on the other side. Relax down through the waist, through the thighs, through the back. And inhale back up. Come to a sitting position with your legs extended out so that you can feel your sits bones well. Knees are a little soft. Go from one sits bone just slightly to one side, weight onto the left sits bone, then the right, then the left. Becoming very aware of the sides of this pelvic floor diaphragm. Then coming back through center, lean back just slightly onto your tailbone and then forward onto the pubic bone that tethers the front of the pelvic floor, back and forth, just a slight rocking. Then coming back to find the central point between those four bones. These are the four bones that form the sling of the pelvic floor. Now you might crisscross your legs again. And keep your mind's eye there in the pelvic floor. Let's contract the whole pelvic floor, which would be all the way from the pelvic floor back to the tailbone and between the sits bones. And let it go. We can divide the pelvic floor into two halves. The half behind the sits bones with the anus, and you might contract that back half of the pelvic floor and let it go, just to be aware and sensitive to the body. And then the front half of the pelvic floor in front of the sits bones, the area of the vagina or the scrotum. Squeezing and letting go. Bring mind's eye back to the respiratory diaphragm. Breathing as you weren't paying any attention. Swelling the ribs. Let your mind's eye locate the middle of the diaphragm, right between the wings of the diaphragm. Let that center of the diaphragm shine down onto the front half of the pelvic floor, keeping a soft gaze so that you can have this inward look. Feeling that light of the center of the diaphragm coming onto the front half of the pelvic floor. Then lengthen up from hips through ribs. Establish your stability here. Breathing up through the neck muscles, feeling the throat diaphragm. Aware of the rise and fall, the wings spread and the feathers closing of the central diaphragm and the pelvic floor diaphragm. As you inhale, notice the pelvic floor diaphragm relaxes a bit. As you exhale, the pelvic floor just gently contracts in. So inhale, let the pelvic floor relax. Exhale, lift slightly, just steady without forcefulness. No overstimulation here. The nerves. We are investing in one of the 8 limbs of yoga called pranayama, which is the breathing. It awakens your body. It brings your mind and body inwards. Now bring one leg out. Other leg can be folded up, or it could be extended out depending on what your knee needs. Turn the chest towards the toes. Inhale up through the crown. And as you exhale, just gently drawing the pelvic floor together, coming forward just an inch or two, knees soft. Inhale up, relax pelvic floor. Exhale forward slightly, slight lift of pelvic floor. Then inhale back up. Now bring the fingertips or palms of the hands a little more forward around the knee. So your body is hinging from the bottom of the spine, chest going towards the toes. We're going to inhale and relax the pelvic floor. As we exhale, we will bring a lock or a pretty good squeeze to the front half of the pelvic floor as it draws up towards the navel, and then we'll sustain our exhale just as long as it's comfortable. So inhale, relax pelvic floor. Exhale, draw pelvic floor up towards the navel. Sustain the exhale. And let it go. Inhale, relax. Exhale, draw pelvic floor. Sustain. And one more time on your own. And we'll come to the other side. Starting with our slight forward fold. Hands are up around the thigh or on the thigh, wherever they're comfortable. Chest towards the toes. Inhale, pelvic floor relaxes. Exhale, light draw up through pelvic floor as body comes a few inches forward. Inhale up, relax. Exhale forward, slight lift. And come back up. Hands come around the knee area. Inhale up, relaxing pelvic floor. Sustained exhale as the pelvic floor draws up to behind the navel. Inhale. Exhale, front half of pelvic floor drawing up. And one more time on your own. And bring it up. We're going to stand now, opening up our joints a bit. What we just did is called mula bandha. So bandha are locks, kind of muscle locks in various parts of the body that tone the tissues and also bring us inwards. During that retention of breath, we can't really think about what much else than what we are in right at that moment. So it brings us into the present. And that's how yogis have used these things called bandha or locks. Bring the feet so that they're under the hips. Bring the elbows together to the extent they can, forearms against each other, and then interclasp the fingers and move. So I was watching somebody, a teacher doing this yesterday, bringing the elbows together focuses the movement into the wrists. Of course, there's some movement of the forearms against each other as they come up and down. And then the opposite direction, leading with the other hand. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Arms come down, shoulders come up to ears. Squeeze the shoulder blades together, a little pause there. Shoulder blades slide down and apart, forward and up. Squeeze in the back and down. And just let it be a fluid movement up and in and down and around. Three, 2, and 1. Bring hands onto hip creases, feet come a little bit wider apart, knees are soft and hips are a little soft here. We'll do a hip circle. This can be done as we often do it, focusing the movement mainly in the hips. And doing it this way, let's come back around the opposite direction about 4 times. Then we're going to move into a hip circle that, coming around in the original direction, is much deeper and involves the whole body. So let the torso enter into this. Feel it up through the diaphragm, the respiratory diaphragm, and even up into the neck diaphragm. And then come around the opposite direction. So this is just an experiment. Hip circles can be more focused or they can involve more of the body, almost like a dance. And then come through middle. Bring the knees together, feet together, hands are on the thighs just above the knees. And we're turning the knees in one direction. Perhaps you feel the ripple of muscles underneath your fingers, the turn around your feet. 2, and 1, and back around the opposite direction. Three, 2, and 1. Rising up, hands come to the waist. If you would like to have a chair here, feel free. Bringing the balance into a foundation leg, feeling that weight coming down onto the mid-heel and out to the edge and across to the mounds of the big toe and the first 2 toes. Other foot comes back and we'll circle to the front of our toes and the back of our toes, keeping a bit of a mind's eye on this hip that is lifting up, no outflaring of this hip. and back the opposite direction, letting the one side of the body be very dynamic so that the other one can be loose. And then coming to the other side, finding your dynamic movement and weight centered in that one side that is holding you up, and then the toe coming back and circling. Opening up the toes, the bottom of the feet, the front of the feet, the ankle, and back around the opposite direction. And bring it in. Feet come directly under the hips. Come up onto your tiptoes as arms come out. And we'll do this just a few times, getting the body used to coming up on tiptoes, arms coming out. One more time, waving your wings. Then the next time you come up, hold up on tiptoes, gaze goes to right, to left, and comes down onto full feet. Up, look to each side, and come down. There is some wobble here. Play with it. See what the body can do with it. One last time. Then come up onto your toes. One more time. Your wings are out, and you might just be midway up on your heels. And we're going to do 2 Om here. And if it doesn't work, bring your heels down. Inhale. Om, reverberating down through the diaphragms. Come down. And one more time, maybe a little lift in the heels, echoing down from throat down through the other diaphragms. Om, and bring it down. We're coming into what I call a Shiva balance. So a little bend in your foundation leg, feeling the centeredness over the foot. Other foot comes up in a figure 4. And maybe you have your hands on your hips or in Namaste, finding your balance here. Feeling the breathing through the respiratory diaphragm. And perhaps a little contraction on the exhale in the pelvic floor. Then let the hands join in. One becomes flat down below and the other one concave as it comes up. If we were Indian dancers, our bottom hand would become convex. For 3, 2, and 1. And on this one, you can always bring your heel to your ankle, so that's always an option as well. So once again, on the other side, finding your foundation leg and figuring out what the body is ready for today, finding your balance, taking 2 breaths here. Then letting the arms join in. For 3, 2, and 1. Good job. We're going to come into a curtsy side bend now. Weight into one foot. Let's say the left foot comes back around. The right arm pushes through across the lower ribs. The other arm comes up and over, feeling a stretch in the lateral side. Pausing for a moment, bringing yourself back out, taking weight into the left foot. Right foot comes around. Left hand pushes through and right arm comes over. Nice opening from the hips up through the ribs, underarm, shoulder and arm. One more time on each side. Curtsy foot back, opposite arm through, arabesque over. Unfolding, curtsy on the other side, and over. And bring yourself up. We'll come into mountain pose, Tadasana. Coming back to the alignment, making our form such that we make space inside the body. Bring the weight down into the mid to outer heels, across to the big toe and the second two toes. Arches are bright, lifting up through the knees, strong in the thigh muscles, lifting up through the torso, up to the crown, long in the back of the neck, chin tucked a bit. Inhale amply through the lower ribs and under the armpits. And as you exhale, let the front lower ribs dive down a bit and the shoulder blades come together and down in the back. And relax things down a little bit. No gripping with the toes. The weight in the mounds of the balls of the feet. And then one last alignment, bringing the center of the respiratory diaphragm over the front half of the pelvic floor. For me, there's just a little bit of movement forward through the lower ribs. And then I want to make sure that I am knitting those front ribs together on my exhale. And sometimes as you walk, you might just think, is the center of my diaphragm shining down on the front half of my pelvic floor? And if I ask myself that, I usually have to make a little adjustment. One last breath here. And then bringing the fingers to the area between the lower ribs in the front. We're going to come into Kapalabhati, the skull cleansing breath. So it's an inhale that is passive, then an exhale that is very sharp. Keep your focus on your nose. Inhale, exhale. Feeling the diaphragm. Two more. And bring it down. We'll do this a little bit later, and you might bring your attention to those three diaphragms as you do the Kapalabhati. You can really feel them all working. Coming to the top of your mat, inhale, up, gaze up. Exhale, forward fold. Knees are soft, hips rise. Hands come to the shin. Inhale, stretching out from the base of the spine up through the crown. Exhale down. Relax down through tailbone, lumbar spine, up through middle spine to the neck. Let the head be very loose. And then planting the hands on the mat, bring the feet back into plank. Good support up through the arms, energy back through the heels. Strong lower belly muscles. Bring the elbows down, knees down, come into a cobra. Let the shoulders rest down the back, elbows back against the body. Tuck the toes, come up into downward dog. Long through the spine, from hands back through arms, along the sides, paddling the feet. And then we're going to come forward, let the hips come down, keep the toes tucked for a moment, maybe just coming down onto the thighs or maybe onto the hips and back up. And we'll do that 2 more times. Coming forward. You can always be on forearms here if this is hard on the wrists and shoulders. And one last time. Then bring the left foot up behind. Press into hands and foot, let it come up a little higher, and then bring it through. You might come down on your knee, or it might come all the way through as we come into low lunge, knee down lunge. Bring one thigh, front thigh back, and the bottom thigh comes up so the hips are aligned across from 9 to 3. Bring the fingertips to the area between the front ribs once again as we come back into that skull cleansing breath. Focus on the end of the nose. Inhale halfway and begin. Two more. And let it go. Bring hands so that they come to the top of the head, palms up, fingers not quite touching. And we're going to push up into the sky. 3 more times. Letting the mind reach up into the turquoise blue. Here in the mind, sister, turquoise blue. And bring the arms down and around. Bring hands down, inside the front foot. Outside arm reaches up, opening up, gaze up in that direction. Then bring the hand down and tuck the back toe. Hand can rub up that front leg, coming into warrior 2 position. So as you can, coming into the warrior 2 position, plugging in the feet, feeling the connection with the earth through the whole circumference and bottom of the feet, little brightness in the arches, dynamic legs up through the body, opening the chest, reaching out through the fingers, flip the palms, shoulder blades rest down, flip them back. Beginning to breathe through the respiratory diaphragm in a very conscious way, aware of the pelvic floor diaphragm, the neck muscles, and the throat diaphragm. And we're going to do 3 Om here, again on your own, inhaling and feeling the vibrations of Om down through the 3 diaphragms. Om. And bring the hands in. Hop the back foot up just a bit. We're coming into triangle, so a little narrower stance. Bring the hands down to hip creases and bring the hips back towards the back of the posture and towards the front of the posture. Just loosening up those hips, then allowing the hips to stay back, opening through the chest, reaching out to the horizon, reach, and then windmill, fingers down to the earth, up into the sky, down into the green, the brown of winter, and up into the turquoise blue. That is there, up above whatever clouds happen to be there. And then we're going to rotate the body, chest and face coming down towards the mat. Arms are out to the sides. Bring the front arm down towards the leg. The ribs and the back arm lift up a bit. Eyes remain down towards the mat. Back arm comes down and lift up. Bring feet wide into a pigeon-toed position, slightly pigeon-toed. Hands onto hip creases. Torso comes parallel. Knees are soft, hands come down. You might have a block here, always fine to have that. I'm suggesting that we walk the hands out for a kind of wide angle downward dog here. Stretch back through the arms, back through the hips. Knees are soft, but stretching up from the heels up to the hips. And then walking back, hands may stay down, or you might bring them back, clasp them below the buttocks into a yoga mudra. And as body goes down, arms might rise up, respectful of the needs of your body. Bend one knee, chest faces towards that knee slightly, going over to one side. Back through center, bend the other knee, and chest goes towards that knee. And back and forth one more time. We'll stretch in the inner thigh here. And back through center, hands come to the hips, rise torso through parallel, and come all the way up. And we'll face the other direction, coming to the perhaps back side of your mat. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, hands to shins. Extend out through the crown, shoulders down through the waist. And once again, forward fold, knees and hips are soft. Relax down through the lumbar spine, up through the thoracic spine. I should say down through the thoracic spine. Let the neck be very loose. Then plant the hands, bring the feet back, coming into plank. Holding for 4, strong through the belly. 2, 1, elbows in, knees down, coming into a cobra. Elbows reaching back, gaze is still down, feet are long, back through the toes. Then tuck the toes, coming up into downward dog. You might pedal the feet again, but we're somewhat stretched out now. We can feel the hips coming back a little farther. The shoulder blades, they're up because your arms are up, but they also come out to the edges of the body just a bit. And then we're going to come forward, down into a kind of cobra, keeping the toes tucked. 2 more times, coming down, just touching down with something onto the mat, or finding your version here. And coming back up. Bring the weight onto the left foot, right foot rises up. Press into hands, press into foot, rise up a little bit more, and then bending the knee in under the belly and through, or coming down onto your knees and coming into low lunge. Take a moment, catch your breath. Breathe as you check on the alignment of the hips. Then bringing the fingers in between the front ribs. We'll come back to that skull cleansing breath. The sharp exhale, focus on the end of the nose. Inhale halfway and begin. Two more. And let it go. Bring hands to the top of the head. Palms are up, fingers not quite touching. Press up, lift up the sky. Up and down. You're in the mind, brother. Turquoise blue. One last time. Then bring both hands down in front of the front foot. The outer arm reaches up, gaze rises, the shoulder or the top of the arm is against the side of the knee, the thigh. And then bringing that down and coming up into warrior 2. Seeking and finding your warrior 2 feet. plugging into the energy of the earth, letting that energy of the earth sift up through all the cells of the calves, up through the thighs, into hips, up towards the heart, opening through the chest, spreading out your wings, opening shoulders down the back, and then bringing your palms facing downwards to the earth. And you will be maintaining some pelvic floor contraction here for support. As you do your 3 Om, letting that echo of vibration come from vocal cords down through the 3 diaphragms of the body. Om. Om. Hands come back into the waist. Jump the back foot forward a bit, coming into the narrower stance of triangle. Hands come to hip creases. Let the hips go side to side to the back of the asana and to the front. And then opening through the chest, reaching out to the horizon. Reach and reach as you feel the stretch on the top side of this posture. Opening up, fingers rooting down to the earth, lifting up to the heavens, shoulders down from the ears a bit. The strong crunch of the muscles underneath the waist and the generous stretch on the top of the waist. Then turning, letting the arms come out like wings as if you're a bird flying over the earth, looking at the green fur colors of winter, the browns, and then one hand coming down to the front leg, other one reaching up, ribs follow, eyes remain down on the mat. Bring the back arm down and rise up. Let's bring one hand to chest and one hand on belly. Just feeling your breath. Letting the energy reorganize in your body. Carving new directions for this river of our bodies. The magpie at rest in the tree. Then bring the hands down. Let the feet come wider than hip width apart. No, I'm sorry. Bring the heels together. We're going to be cranes. Our heels are together. We're in a kind of Mary Poppins feet with the toes out to the sides. We will make beaks with our fingers as the fingers and the thumb come together to form what we think of as a beak. And they are oddly on the end of our wings, but that's okay. And we lift our wings and bend our knees and then bring them down. Gaze can be soft, letting a rhythm establish itself, letting the body breathe, letting your internal bird fly. Two more times. Take a breath. Bring the feet a little wider than hip width apart. We're going to be cranes once again, crossing our arms as knees bend, hips go out behind. Bring our nest down. Then lift up our wings and lift up one knee. Or if that toe needs to stay down and you just come up onto the toe, that's fine also. Displaying your beautiful plumage. Finding your own rhythm here. shifting the weight so that you are centered on that foot on each side. Shifting and centering the weight from side to side, as the crane must instinctually know so well to do. One more time to each side. And bring it down. For a moment, let's come into a tabletop position. Bringing the hands directly under the shoulders, knees under hips, allowing free movement of the spine here, extending and flexing, opening up the backs of the vertebrae and opening up the fronts of the vertebrae. Tailbone rising and falling. Once again, establishing your own rhythm here. One more time, each direction. And let's come back. Heels come to hips and heels come together. Reach the fingers forward, stretch back through the arms, through the spine, to the tailbone. And sliding the hands back, lift up onto the knees. Bring the hands back to the sacrum, squeeze together through shoulder blades and elbows for a moment. Then one arm reaches up, reaching up, gaze following, and the other hand rubs down over the buttocks, down the back of the thigh. Reach up, nice stretch, slowly changing the positions, interchanging the hands, reaching up through little finger, gaze on the thumb, finding your own rhythm as you open up. Reach up into the heavens as surely as you are rooted into the earth. One more stretch. And then bring it down. Again, into a child's pose. Curl up as tightly as you'd like to here. Chin might come to chest. Hands might come along the side, even come back onto the bottom of the feet. And then unfolding, coming down onto the side of the hip and round as we come down into a lying position. When you get down, take a nice long stretch, pull one wrist up, that heel pushes down, and the other side. Let the arms be along the side, feet come a few inches below the buttocks. We're going to do a pelvic curl here. Drawing in through pelvic floor and using the lower abdominal muscles, let the tailbone rise and the back of the waist come down towards the mat. And then tailbone comes down, lower waist lifts up. Small movements. Resisting the temptation to use hamstrings or glute muscles here. Letting the pelvic floor and the lower abdominal muscles do the work. Aware of the pelvic floor diaphragm. And then coming through neutral, bring the weight into the soles of the feet. Raise the hips, strong through the glutes. Arms begin to raise also, coming up, holding the hips up as arms come up overhead, just as far as works for the shoulders, and coming back down, letting hands and hips come down to the mat together. 2 more times, synchronizing long inhale as hips rise, glutes hold the hips up, arms come up overhead, and a long exhale as hands come down, parallel with hips, and everything comes down together. And 1 more time. Arms are along the side, knees lean in towards each other, relaxing down through the back of the skull, between the shoulder blades, behind the waist, heavy through the hips, soles of the feet and palms of the hands, gently touching down to the mat, to the earth. And if you'd like to take 3 Om here, again on your own, feeling the vibrations through the 3 diaphragms of the body. Om. And giving the knees a hug. Bringing any intention back to your day from yoga practice. Maybe it's just turquoise blue. And then rolling over, staying down if you'd like, relaxing a little longer. May we smell the trees. May we feel the breeze. May we hear the birds. Here in the mind, sisters and brothers, turquoise blue. Namaste. Thank you for practicing. It's been nice to be with you.